Alright, let's talk about how your mental processes dictate every single decision you make. And we're going to talk about it with Gilmore Girls and the Marvel MCU. Hi guys, I'm Dr. Tank. I help really intelligent people handle their anger and how to respond to it quickly. Because really intelligent people usually live in the logical mindset. That means when the emotional mindset takes over, it's very powerful and it's difficult to control quickly. I provide the skills that help them control that anger instantly, so they don't make decisions they end up regretting for the rest of their life. Our thought processes provide a shortcut on how to think and make decisions. Your body wants to conserve as much energy as possible, and it doesn't want to waste that energy making the same decisions over and over again. So it comes up with shortcuts on how to think. Now there are two primary drivers on our thought processes. The first is our empowerment, and the second is our emotional drive. Let's first talk about the empowerment. Now let's map out empowerment from 0 to infinity. 0 being an inanimate object or someone who's not alive. If you're not alive or an inanimate object, you have 0 empowerment. You can't do anything to affect your surrounding or yourself. On the other end of the spectrum, at infinity, you're able to change reality with an instant thought. This is the power of God. And way down below there is the maximum capacity of human empowerment. Now, empowerment isn't discrete, it's gradual. And we all exist somewhere within this line. Helpless people have very little empowerment. They don't believe that the actions they take contribute to their reality. On the other hand, very empowered people believe in their actions changing their reality to some degree. It's because of this belief that helpless people don't take action, whereas empowered people want to initiate some sort of action. Emotions also play a major role in our thought processes. Now, these emotions can range from very positive to very negative. And some of the very positive emotions are love, hope, and justice. Some of the negative emotions are anxiety, fear, and anger. Positive emotion is very growth-oriented. It hopes to achieve growth by taking action. Negative emotional mindset, on the other hand, is very defensive. It tries to protect whatever resources or assets are still available. Now, how do some of these mindsets exist? When we're a child and we start crying, let's say we're a child and we start crying. Once we cry, our parents reward us to calm us down. In our mind, we associate crying and being quiet provides us a reward. As we grow, we start adjusting these thought patterns. And some of us reinforce that same old thought pattern. As a result, we seem to believe that complaining provides benefits to us. Outside of comedy, complaining typically results in disgruntled people around you. If somebody is a complainer, they typically have very low empowerment. They also come from a place of negativity. They're either angry, anxious, or fearful of possible results. But what if they had a positive mindset instead? A person with low empowerment but positive mindset tends to believe that very little action is required for them to provide any benefit. They relieve themselves of the responsibility of taking action and put that onus on an external source. Now, they'll often take that external source as luck, the universe, or a god. Putting that responsibility on an external source relieves them of that stress. And they believe, without taking action, that they will have benefits from their mindset. This is my problem with the law of attraction, is that the law of attraction only says that your mindset will provide you with benefit. This eliminates any empowerment we could have. It puts the onus of responsibility on an external source. I'm sure if you ask your external source about providing you with some sort of benefit, it will require you to take some sort of action. Now, what happens if somebody has high accountability and a negative mindset? This comes from a place of fear, anger, or anxiety. They try to protect whatever assets or resources they have available. As a result, this becomes a zero-sum game. You can't win if you're only protecting and defending the resources you have available. And this mindset makes complete logical sense. We'll see possibilities of plan A, B, C, and D, and we see how to counter that and take action against it. It makes logical sense to take specific actions to defend ourselves from losing resources or assets. But the problem with this specific mindset is that it's capped. You can't grow beyond a certain point if you're always playing defense. And at worst case scenario, you start to lose assets or resources slowly because you're expending them providing that defense. With a positive mindset, not only do you take action, but you believe that growth is possible. You get positive reinforcement for the actions that you take. In addition, if you take action and you don't gain from those actions, you learn an important lesson on what not to do. This positive mindset provides you with a win-win scenario. Now, the problem with this mindset is that growth isn't always possible. Sometimes actions have to be limited to reserve and conserve resources. So what are some examples in Gilmore Girls of characters that fit these molds? Let's look at somebody who's positive but very helpless. Now let's take a look at Rory. Because of her gift of intelligence at a young age, and because of her family background, she believes that she deserves to be published and get her dream job at a newspaper. When that doesn't happen, she starts throwing a tantrum. She almost throws her life away, quitting school and wandering about in her life. She doesn't have the empowerment to believe that taking corrective action will provide her with the benefits that she truly deserves. Now let's take a look at Michelle. Michelle is somebody with very little empowerment because he doesn't believe the actions he takes are going to result in any benefit. All he does is complain. He has a negative mindset out of fear or anger. This limits the possible growth that he could have in his life. Now here's the thing with people with very little empowerment, is that they don't usually drive a story forward. So there are very few examples of these characters in media. They're usually the sidekick or the joke character. Now let's look at Lorelai. From a young age, she had her child. She knew that she had to get out of her parents' home and take action. So she left the house, found a job, worked at a young age to provide for herself and her daughter. She believes that the action she takes provides benefits. She worked her way up and believes in the power of hard work. She also has hope that she could grow from this, which is why she bought another inn to start up with her friend. She isn't perfect. She does have negative mindset around her parents, but she does in general have a very positive, empowered mindset. Now let's look at Paris Geller. Paris is a very empowered character. She knows that she puts in work, she's going to get some sort of benefit from it. However, she reacts out of fear and anger. When she doesn't get into her dream school, she breaks down. She's so focused on trying to protect her status and her resources that anybody who interferes with that is immediately seen as a threat, and she reacts to it out of fear and anger. This mindset provides very little growth, which is probably why this show has such a slow growth for her. Her emotional journey takes a while before she starts turning around. She starts seeing hope and love as a possibility, and that's the growth she has to endure in order to change for the better. And this is probably why Paris is a more interesting character than Rory is, because Paris undergoes a positive emotional change, whereas Rory doesn't have that same emotional growth. Now let's look at some characters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now if you look at most of superhero significant others who don't become superheroes themselves, they're typically very helpless. They rely and hope that their significant other will save the world, instead of taking some sort of action on their own. These people have very positive mindsets, but they're very helpless. They hope that whatever external source there is will come and save them. On the other hand, characters like Flash Thompson have very little empowerment in this universe. They're stuck with the fear and anxiety, and all they can do is complain. They take very little action to change the course of their life. Now let's look at Tony Stark. He's very empowered. He lives on the upper end of human empowerment. However, he's driven by fear. His defensive mindset is almost his downfall. He's afraid of what would happen if he didn't take action. He's afraid of losing his world, his friends, and his life. And as a result, he can't grow from this. He's emotionally stunted, being very angry. Now let's also look at his counterpart, Captain America. Captain America thrives on hope and love. He has a positive mindset, believing in a better world. This is why he takes action. This is why he tries to defend people. Now these characters are very discrete examples of specific mindsets of empowerment. That doesn't mean that we're all the same. Now many people live in the defensive mindset. This makes the most logical sense. We could see the possibilities and we could counter them. We see the resources or assets that need to be protected and we ensure they're protected. We plan for contingencies, and we feel better having some sort of control over the outcome. The problem is that a lot of people are stuck in that defensive mindset. Maybe they've been traumatized with living with extremely low resources. This overwhelming fear controls their mindset. This overwhelming fear imprints in their mind that this is a possible scenario. So they plan for contingencies against it. The amygdala, the brain region responsible for imprinting emotions, identifies this state of conservation as a horrifying threat. It doesn't want to repeat this scenario. As a result, we never let go of that anxiety in fear that we would have to ultra conserve ourselves like that again. But then life isn't always what we expect. What happens when plan A, B, C, and D all fail? Living in fear limits the unlimited possibilities. It's a limiting belief because we try so hard to hold on and protect what we already have because we're so afraid of losing it. We hold on tighter, hoping that we won't lose it. And sometimes we end up losing it because of that. When we prepare for all the outcomes, we ignore the unexpected possibilities. It limits our worldview and we only see what's in front of us. I was in defensive mode for a very long time. Most of my life, in fact. So bad that I got into the prepper mentality. These are the people who prep in case of a disaster or a zombie apocalypse. It wasn't until recently that I was actually able to become a little more hopeful. But it took a lot of faith to make that change. Letting go of that anxiety and fear from negative mentality is very difficult. Letting go of that anger, fear, and anxiety isn't possible unless you have the faith to back it up. It requires the faith that good things can happen with positive action. For somebody who always likes to have a plan A, B, C, and D, it's very difficult to have that almost seemingly blind faith. But that's another video. Now there's a caveat to this, is that sometimes the sacrifice of resources are required to grow. Sometimes you have to sacrifice some of your sleep in order to prioritize the more important things like your family. Sometimes you have to sacrifice eating in order to lose weight. This requires giving up your defenses in order to get some offensive advantage. Now, not everybody stays in one mode their entire life. A lot of people stay mostly in one mindset, but it's good to shift mindsets every once in a while. We can't always be in a winter season. We can't always be protecting our assets. Because when spring comes, we want to grow. We want to make sure we use our resources effectively so we grow. But there will be times where growth isn't possible, and that's when you have to conserve. Being able to switch between these mindsets is the ultimate goal in human life, because that means you're prioritizing your resources effectively. And you're doing this not just for yourself, but for your family as well. And isn't it worth it to gain instead of always playing defense for whatever you currently have? A lot of parents will force their kids and themselves to play defense when you need them to be on an offensive and growth mindset. You have to be able to stand back, assess, and adjust when necessary. I'm Dr. Tank. Never give up on yourself.